systems reflect the needs of society.
Technology changes if we are accepting of it.
I think actually media is actually also very strongly shaped by society.
Demand for media is what shapes what comes about.
I haven't changed as fast as the technology is changing, but I'm trying to keep up with it.
A few seconds away from switching to the redundant sense sequencer. T-minus 27 seconds.
Ladies and gentlemen, rock and roll.
As the population grew in numbers, music grew in popularity. Man invented the radio and the phonograph. Soon television came along and gave us the gift of sight. But it was cable that gave us the freedom of choice. MTV Music Television.
The press systems, the media systems reflect the needs of society. Technology will always have an impact on people, society, even an evolutionary impact over the longer run. But in the short run, typically demand for media is what shapes what comes about.
Do we change with the technology? Sure. Technology changes if we are accepting of it. We buy more iPhones, we buy more iPods.
If someone doesn't want to use some product, then it's not going to hang around. It's not like Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. If you build it and they don't like it, they'll go away.
As Facebook started taking off in popularity, there's a big, what they call network effect, which is as more people you know get on Facebook, that makes you really want to get on Facebook. Where people are certainly helps drive other people there.
Of media, the things that have developed and stayed are the things that serve consumers best. A perfect example now is the transition to the use of tablets and a variety of more consumer-oriented electronic devices versus producer-oriented, which are what laptops and desktops really are.
It takes less than 60 seconds to download a new book on my Kindle.
60 seconds? Wow. That's the book I was gonna get.
But when technology gets out of the way, everything becomes more delightful, even magical. That's when you leap forward. That's when you end up with something like this.
What I see in content change is more kinds of content becoming available. So more content is available of things you might not wish to have, but which by virtue of freedom of information, at least within this country and this democracy, will exist, so long as people are willing to pay for it.
You can think of Google the same way you think of a journalist. Journalist editors, the editors at journalism organizations, or organizers. They're gatekeepers. Their job is to go through all of this information, pick out what they think is most important, package it, and then sell it. And to some degree, Google packages and sells it because they can go search for all sorts of stuff and let you find it. As the amount of stuff to search through increases, and it does, then you need that more and more. And that's one of the reasons that journalism as a gatekeeping process is probably not going to go away.
That people can get raw data a lot easier now because of social media, because of the internet and how widespread it is, but making sense of things is still hard. And it takes a lot of effort, and most people don't really have the time and energy to go do that. And that's where the expertise of the journalists can really come in.
The advancement that the internet did was not as dramatic as the advancement of radio or television. nor was it adopted as fast as radio or television. Look at it this way, before radio it was impossible, unless you had a photograph, but it was impossible to communicate with large numbers of people simultaneously, so that everybody heard the same thing at the same time. And that was a huge change. It totally reconfigured how we thought of time. When television came along, up until then there was no way for everybody to see things simultaneously. And that was a huge thing. You know, people going to movies dropped tremendously at that point. What the internet did is it provided convenience. It can get things to you better. It does allow you to put together multimedia packages.
You have a Facebook page? I have a Facebook page. My students this summer created a Facebook page for the course. It facilitates communication. I don't know if you want to call it social or asocial or whatever. It certainly facilitates communication. Does it do it any better? I don't think it necessarily does it any better. It does it faster. And fast is one criterion for success, I think.
Just a little bit, just a little bit, a little more information to add to my confusion, to add to the frustration. I don't need it.
There was a social network before Facebook called 6 Degrees. It was a social network that didn't have the equivalent of what Facebook calls a newsfeed. And so basically everyone would go there, they would give the email addresses of all their friends to 6 Degrees, and then they'd never come back. And it turns out it's really hard to make money from people who never show up at your website. That's an example of basically a social media technology, very similar to Twitter or to MySpace or to Google+, that failed because society wasn't there, wasn't quite ready for that. And the media had to adapt to society in that case. And that was part of it, was finding a way to get people to come back to the site on a regular basis so you could make money. And the newsfeed, I think, sort of really did that for Facebook. And that's what allowed, that adaptation that the media made is what enabled it to take off.
There are technologies that come along that the public rejects. It doesn't add anything to my repertoire of communication activity that I'll give something else up for.
People who thought that the internet was going to be wide open and anybody could do this and that did not know history. Businesses make money by concentrating power. They buy up other businesses until they have that power. Regulation over markets has declined over the years, and it's been easier and easier for competitors to buy each other up, or in some cases run somebody out of business. The perfect example was Microsoft Explorer and Netscape. Netscape was actually the dominant search engine, and Microsoft built Explorer. Explorer was bundled with all of the operating systems. Netscape was not. But Netscape is pretty much gone. And that's market power. That's monopoly power. Google has that. A person should be able to control their attention span. And if they can't, they'll run into difficulty. I think younger people have a lot more messages competing for their attention.
Part of it, there's actually a bunch of recent research that's been coming out of psychology that looks at kind of willpower and attention. And one of the things that they show is that willpower is very much like a muscle. The more you use it, the better you are at using it. So willpower and attention is a piece of willpower is very much like a muscle. And if we're not practicing building up our attention, then it actually does atrophy like a muscle and you don't have as much. So in that respect, I think that our specific attention for details is waning a little bit.
As a matter of fact, we have probably capable of demonstrating an increased attention span. That is the increased attention span in terms of multitasking. Okay, you can text while you're listening to a lecturer. You can watch television and listen to music and probably read a newspaper. Not necessarily lose the basics of each of them. What I think may be affected is not the learning dimension, but the emotional dimension. I think you have less emotional response if you shortcut the messages involved. You express less emotion in texting than if you were writing it, an email or an original letter.
Just how it works out is still very, very difficult to anticipate. So in 5 years, when the economy's better and some people have learned more about the internet and how they can market, et cetera, we'll get a better idea of what it's going to be like.
So these changes are phenomenal at this point in time. And I'm not predictive of what's going to happen next. It's interesting to see people talk about it, the extent to which we can get even more micro-conscious in terms of the equipment we work with and materials we